stand on guard for thee.
Thanks, everybody.
Great job. Hey, good job.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you.
Good job, Bob.
Thank you.
I think Maryland.
Ready?
Statements by members. Déclaration des députés. The honourable member for Sault Ste. Marie.
Mr. Speaker, this season the Sioux Greyhounds have been celebrating their 50th anniversary in the Ontario Hockey League. Since they joined the OHL in 1972, they have become one of the top producers of hockey players in the league. They've had over 160 players who have been drafted to the NHL and numerous players that are playing around the world. Wayne Gretzky, Darnell Nurse, Jeff Carter, Joe Thornton, Ron Francis, Ted and Jordan Nolan are just a few to name. They started their career on the Great Red and White and continue to make Siouxites proud of their ongoing accomplishments. The Sioux Greyhounds' current and alumni rosters continuously support and inspire younger players, teaching and guiding them to success. Mr. Speaker, the Sioux Greyhounds are playing incredibly well in the playoffs this year and are swiftly moving forward in the season. Hound power continues to burn up the ice, and we look forward to winning the Robertson Cup. Mr. Speaker, I wish to join my fellow neighbors and colleagues in wishing the Sioux Greyhounds the best as they move forward this season, and congratulations on 50 years. Go, Hounds, go!
The honourable member for Peace River Westlock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to recognize the thousands of Canadians that will be participating in the March for Life right here in Ottawa and in provincial capitals across the country. Every year, folks from all backgrounds march for the lives of those in the womb who have no legal rights or recognition here in Canada. The theme for this year's march is I Am. Participations recognize the value and dignity of human life at all stages, especially among the most vulnerable. This includes the 300 babies who lose their lives every single day here in Canada, and many of them simply because they are just a girl. This year's event is connected to the March for Life, includes the Candlelight Vigil at the Human Rights Memorial, the Rose Dinner, and a Youth Summit, and many more events. I want to welcome and thank those who are coming to honor, respect, and celebrate life. As the abortion survivor Gianna Jensen says, the best thing I can show you to defend life is my life. It has been a great gift. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Orleans.
No, je pense que...
I think that you are on mute. I will wait. Try again.
Non, on vous entend pas.
We cannot hear you.
Okay, vas-y.
Go ahead.
Encore.
Still no.
Chance to call you, and we'll move you to a place a little further down.
The honourable member for Abitibi Beijing's Nunavut EU. No one is ready. Okay. The honourable member for Abitibi Beijing's Nunavut EU. Mr. Speaker, we're in the middle of the National Nursing Week, and I wanted to take a moment to recognize the extraordinary contribution that nurses make to our society. This is nothing new, but it is even more evident since the beginning of the pandemic. The theme this year is We Will Answer the Call, and it's quite fitting. Through the many roles that nurses play, more than ever in our healthcare system, these essential caregivers truly have answered the call. They are the ones who are closest to patients, and their tasks are as humane as medical. They must be both competent and compassionate, and this is all under extreme pressure. This is why they deserve all our admiration, gratitude, and solidarity during this week dedicated to them. Dear nurses, bravo and thank you.
Okay, I'm going to say it nouveau. Je pense que...
We'll try again. I think the microphone is now on. The honourable member for Orleans.
Excellent. As a Rotarian, I was pleased to attend the Rotary District 7040 conference this Saturday to hear from Michel Rodrigue, President and CEO of Mental Health Commission of Canada, and our own Dr. Vera Etches, medical officer of Ottawa Public Health, on the impact of COVID-19 and mental health. Their insight and experience in the field were very insightful and presented valuable lessons in dealing with the remnants of the pandemic and in transitioning to a post-COVID environment. I also had the pleasure to witness Orleans Rotarian Julia Ginley and Gail O'Day receiving the Paul Harris Society Fellowship Award from District Governor Faye Campbell, also an Orleans resident. The Paul Harris Society Fellowship Awards recognizes individuals who have contributed their time to community involvement. Because of their dedication, the Orleans Rotary chapter will continue to flourish as an indispensable branch of the Rotary International. Bravo.
The Honourable Member for Argenteuil-La-Petite-Nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Monday, May 9th, the David Suzuki Foundation announced the 15 finalists for the 8th edition of Demain le Québec Award. Among the finalists are projects that highlight Canada's Aboriginal heritage and culture, as well as initiatives to protect the territory and biodiversity. One of the 15 finalist projects takes place in my riding of Argenteuil-La-Petite-Nation. The Espace Monarque is a project that allows young people to explore the world of insects and the monarch butterfly in order to better understand the interaction between flora and fauna. It highlights ecology while providing the opportunity to learn and develop a sense of belonging and commitment of young people. This is a great collaboration between the Argenteuil MRC, the Oasis Elementary School, and the Richelieu Club of La Chute. Congratulations to Argenteuil MRC Prefect Scott Pierce and his team, Eric Pelletier, René-Claude Bergeron, and Émilie Jutras for their initiative, which makes this MRC, Quebec, and Canada shine. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Provencher.
Mr. Speaker, it was the great Winston Churchill who said, "Never does a man portray his character more vividly than when proclaiming the character of another." I am deeply troubled by the rhetoric this Prime Minister has used to describe Canadians who've chosen not to be vaccinated. According to the Prime Minister, the unvaccinated are racists, misogynists, and dangerous extremists who don't love their neighbors, don't believe in science, and shouldn't be tolerated by society. He continues to use mandates to punish the millions of Canadians, including federal public servants, by taking away their livelihoods for simply making a personal, private medical choice. This government says they're following the science. They obviously mean the political science. It's not our job to judge the medical choices Canadians make for themselves and their families. This fear-mongering, this division, this stigmatizing must stop. It's time to end these divisive, discriminatory mandates.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to share with this House that just last month, the Rohingya Centre of Canada opened its doors in Kitchener. Waterloo Region is home to 60% of the Rohingya living in Canada, the vast majority of which are in my riding of Kitchener South Hespeler. We are honoured to have this centre located in our region, as it not only benefits those receiving services, but enriches the wider community as a whole. The Rohingya are often cited as one of the most discriminated people in the world. However, through this tragedy, they have shown us their ability to persevere no matter the odds. The Rohingya Centre of Canada perfectly captures this spirit of perseverance, as it ensures Rohingya Canadians thrive after arriving in Canada. Here, new arrivals can get employment resources, celebrate their culture, receive assistance in navigating the customs of their new country. I ask the members of this House to join me in applauding the Rohingya Centre of Canada and the work they do to support people and empower communities.
The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nicolina Bozzo. If you do not recognize the name, you must Google her right now. This 18-year-old singer and songwriter from the city of Vaughan took the world by surprise back in February with her rendition of She Used to Be Mine on American Idol, of the life that's inside her, growing stronger each day, till it finally reminds her to fight just a little, to bring back the fire in her eyes. These are the lyrics from Nicolina's audition song, where she brought back the fire in our eyes. Nicolina keeps raising the bar at American Idol each week after week, flawless being a recurrent word used by the judges to describe her artistry. The journey of her voice is so infectious that it leaves us all at the edge of our seats and wanting more. Now in the top 5, Nicolina could become the first Canadian American Idol. Nicolina, we can't get enough of your voice. You make Canada proud. The City of Vaughan and all of Canada are rooting for you, along with your parents, Dave and Marcella, your grandparents, and your sisters, Alessia and Isabella. Mr. Speaker, go Nicolina, go!
The honourable member for Barrie, Springwater, Oro-Medonte.
Mr. Speaker, today I am rising in Parliament to commemorate the loss of a Barrie fundraising hero, William Dwyer, who passed away this week at the age of 96. My condolences go to his family, friends, and organizing team he was part of. Will was the epitome of selflessness and perseverance. He had struggled with cancer, being hit by a car. He was a World War II veteran and had several other health conditions. Yet, despite all this, Will never stopped fighting for a cure for cancer. Will spent over 4 decades tirelessly fundraising for the Terry Fox Foundation. And whether he was on foot, using a walker or a wheelchair, or having his son drive him door to door, he never gave up his goal to raise over $1 million for the foundation. As soon as Will accomplished that goal of $1 million raised, he set his sights on $2 million, and no one doubted that with more time, he could have done that. From myself and the member from Barrie Innisfil, we would like to thank you, Will, for dedicating your life to serving the community, our country, and for all the difference you have made. Rest in peace, Will.
The honourable member for Brampton North.
Mr. Speaker, Brampton plays a significant role in Canada's automotive sector and is home to the top-tier manufacturers like our Stellantis assembly plant. This auto manufacturing plant is an essential part of our community. Since being elected, I've understood the importance of protecting these well-paying, middle-class jobs and securing the future of manufacturing in my city. I've spoken directly with union leaders and workers regarding their fears around a potential plant closure. But those fears can be put to rest because last week, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry announced alongside Stellantis an investment that protects the existing 3,000 jobs, creates over 1,000 new jobs, will return the plant's third shift and provide a plant-wide transition to producing electric vehicles. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud that the highest quality Brampton-built technology will help shape the next chapter in Canada's electric vehicle transition for years to come.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Bellechasse, Les Chemins-Lévis. Good day, Mr. Speaker. I want to highlight the accomplishments of a family in my riding, the Blais family, which has been named the Farm Family of the Year 2021. Marcel Blais acquired a small farm in Honfleur in 1969. That same year, he married Monique Bélanger. They had 2 children, Dominique and Guillaume. At the beginning, they had 23 cows, 92 acres, and a maple grove. Today, the farm has 300 head of cattle on 235 acres, and they tap 1,400 maple trees. The farm produces 11,900 kilograms of milk, recognized as excellent milk, lait par excellence by the milk producers of Quebec. Marcel, Monique, and their sons are all owners of the MB Marronnier farm, and the succession seemed assures with the grandchildren they're having. Time does not permit me to list all the achievements of this family, but I would also like to underline the exceptional social commitment of all the members of the family. Once again, Mr. Speaker, I wish to express my admiration to this family and wish them many more years of success. Thank you.
The honourable member for Lethbridge.
Excessive control and distrust of the Canadian people are the trademarks of this Liberal government. The Liberals want to choose what Canadians watch online. This is the latest of their assaults. They justify this power grab in Bill C-11 by saying they need to, quote, protect Canadian culture. Not only do the Liberals think that Canadians don't do a good job promoting themselves and their culture, but they actually laugh, as they're doing right now, or criticize those who suggest that we have the ability to promote our own culture. Thank you very much, Minister. So here's the truth. Canadian artists are hitting it out of the park when it comes to growing online audiences and reaching a global market. Government interference, or so-called modernization, is unwelcomed. We don't need it. There's nothing about it that actually promotes Canadian culture. Here's the thing. Canadian artists don't want their content downgraded just because it doesn't match the government's values test. And viewers don't want to be told what needs to be forced in front of their eyeballs simply because the government wants them to watch it. Instead, Canadians want to stay true, north, strong, and free. Choices, they matter. Leave it up to the Canadian people.
Just want to remind folks to keep the chatter down a little bit as we finish up the statements by members. The honourable member for West Vancouver, Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country.
Mr. Speaker, the French language is an integral part of the life, history, and future of Canadian culture, which has been sustained nationally through official bilingualism. I had the privilege of taking part in French immersion at the Pauline Johnson School, where I was able to begin learning French as a child and one of the many French immersion programs in all parts of my riding. Our government has introduced legislation to modernize the Official Languages Act to protect and promote the French language across Canada, including in my province of British Columbia. We are also building on our successful Francophone immigration programs, which allow us to recruit immigrants like the wonderful Moroccan chefs who have been recruited to Whistler and who have enriched and formed a valued part of that community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Women working in Canada's sex trade deserve safety. Unfortunately, one shared experience by all those working in the trade is stigmatization. Stigmatization means barriers in accessing health care. Stigmatization means workers not reporting abuse in fear of judgment by those in power. Stigmatization means Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirited individuals overrepresented in the sex trade continue to go missing or are murdered. Stigmatization means organizations working to provide essential supports are struggling to access reliable funding. Stigmatization means those working in the sex trade were not eligible by this government for CERB. And finally, Mr. Speaker, stigmatization means this government is dragging their heels to deliver legislation to protect sex trade workers, instead driving them further into isolation. How many lives need to be lost before this government finally takes action?
The honourable member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, the largest aluminium smelter in the Americas is celebrating its 30th anniversary. The Alouette aluminum smelter is a source of pride for the North Shore, a jewel for Quebec, and a perfect example of how it is possible to be a large, environmentally responsible company with a human touch. A company like Alouette is first and foremost the strength, knowledge, and expertise of its employees, more than 900 North Shore employees who work with their heart for a company that has been involved in the community since the very beginning. Whenever I can, I don't hesitate to promote this company with its deep roots in our region, and every visit reminds me of how proud we can be of the expertise on the North Shore and in Quebec in terms of technology. I hope to wish them a very happy 30th anniversary through its CEO, Claude Gosselin, all the people who work together. Let's work together so that the company can continue to grow and promote the know-how of the North Shore and Quebec throughout the Americas and beyond. Thank you.
The honourable member for Portage Lisgar.
Mr. Speaker, May is Asian Heritage Month. Over 6 million people of Asian heritage live in Canada and have enriched our country with their unique cultures, languages, and traditions. I'm proud to say that Douglas Jung, the first Chinese-Canadian MP, Bev Oda, the first Japanese-Canadian MP, and Nellie Shin, the first Korean-Canadian Member of Parliament, were all proud Conservatives. As we celebrate this year's theme of continuing a legacy of greatness, I encourage all members of this House to take time to learn about the inspiring inspiring stories of Asian Canadians who stood up to injustice and worked to overcome barriers. In spite of the challenges they have faced, Asian Canadians have made countless contributions to Canada in medicine, music, literature, and business. Asian Canadians have blessed Canada and have added to the incredible richness of our country. Let's all celebrate these contributions and learn more about the ways in which our country was shaped by Asian Canadians. Happy Asian Heritage Month.
The honourable member for Humber River, Black Creek.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy to rise in this House today to welcome the Canada-Ukraine Parliamentary Program Class of 2022 as they begin their first full week here in Ottawa. This program began in 1991 under the authority of then Speaker of the House, John Allen Fraser, happening every year since until 2020, when the program was put on hold due to COVID-19. This year, we welcome back the program with the largest number ever having participated, and for the first time, all women. All 40 interns will be working in MPs' offices from different parties until the House rises for the summer, getting the opportunity to learn more about Canadian government and parliamentary procedure. Mr. Speaker, this program began the same year that the Ukraine Parliament adopted their Declaration of Independence and has produced over 1,000 alumni, including current Ukrainian cabinet ministers. It is fitting that they return this year, even though the road has been far more difficult. This is why I invite all members of this House and their staff to join us tonight at the Metropolitan in support of these resilient young women who continue to work for a democratic and free Ukraine. Thank you.
Oral questions, question orale, the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
When the Prime Minister invoked the Emergencies Act on Canadians, he said it was because police said they needed it. Well, yesterday we found out that wasn't quite true. The RCMP Commissioner clearly stated in committee yesterday that the RCMP didn't request that the Act be invoked and that police used existing legislation to resolve border blockades. Speaker, we cannot trust these Liberals to tell the truth on why they use the Emergencies Act. So will they stop the cover-up, come clean, and release all the documents related to cabinet decisions around the Emergencies Act? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as Commissioner Lucky told the committee, the Emergencies Act allowed police to maintain a secure perimeter and refuse entry of individuals travelling to the illegal protest with the intent of participating. It gave police, quote, the enforcement authority to arrest individuals who continued to supply fuel, food, and other materials. And it gave police, quote, new powers to compel individuals to provide essential goods or services for the removal, towing, and storage of vehicles and equipment. We've now announced the independent inquiry to examine the circumstances that led to the declaration and the measures taken in response. We all look forward to Justice Rouleau's work and the inquiry's answers on this matter.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the problem is the Prime Minister has been spreading misinformation and disinformation about the protest. He called people names, he wedged, divided, and spread misinformation about them. Speaker, those who have nothing to hide nothing. But it's clear this Prime Minister is worried about Canadians hearing the facts. The fact is the Prime Minister didn't have a legitimate reason to use the Emergency Measures Act. It was an overreach, and now he's trying to cover that up and use cabinet confidence as an excuse. Isn't that the truth, Mr. Speaker?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The issue seems to be the Conservatives seem really frightened about the fact that there's going to be an open, transparent inquiry into these illegal blockades, these illegal protests that they were continuing to support throughout. Mr. Speaker, Canadians were disrupted in their homes, in their communities, in their places of work by these illegal blockades, and we took the responsible and restrained measures necessary in order to restore order to this country and continue to defend peaceful protests everywhere. That matters, Mr. Speaker, and that's what we're continuing to do.
Here, here. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are struggling every day because of this government's policy, whether it's the cost of living, long lineups at airports, or continued mandates. Canadians are worse off today than they were 6 years ago. Now, Canadians know the Prime Minister doesn't have to go to a grocery store. He doesn't have to pump or pay for his own gas. Canadians know the Prime Minister doesn't have to wait in line at airports. He doesn't have to wait for a passport at a Service Canada office. The Prime Minister simply has no understanding or empathy for Canadians, and because of that, he's doing nothing to fix all of the problems he's created over the last 6 years. Isn't that the sad but real truth, Mr. Speaker?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Over the past 6 years, we've been focused on supporting the middle class and helping those working hard to grow to join it. We've continued to have Canadians' backs with things like lowering taxes on the middle class so we can raise them on the wealthiest 1%. We moved forward with a Canada Child benefit that stopped the Conservatives' practice of sending millionaires checks for their families and instead gave more money to the families who actually needed it. We continue to move forward in increasing supports for seniors, increasing supports for young people, and during the pandemic, Mr. Speaker, we had Canadians' backs. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, every step of the way, Conservatives voted against these measures.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has become a master in the art of disinformation, and it was the RCMP Commissioner herself who demonstrated this clearly in committee. 1, the RCMP never asked for the Emergency Measures Act. 2, the RCMP never asked to have protesters' bank accounts frozen. And 3, in fact, the RCMP learned at the same time as the rest of us that the Prime Minister had invoked the Act. Does the Prime Minister agree that the law was unnecessary and only a political decision? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. As Commissioner Lucky said in committee, the Emergency Measures Act enabled the police to maintain a security perimeter and refuse entry to people wanting to join the illegal demonstration. The act gave the police the power to arrest people who continued providing fuel, food, and other equipment, and it also provided new powers to prevent people from providing services or that to enable people to tow vehicles and so on. Now there's an independent inquiry into the circumstances, and we will continue to remain open and transparent. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, that all happened afterward, but the RCMP said they didn't need it. That's the fact the Prime Minister is trying to avoid. Making stories up and denying reality, that's the Prime Minister's specialty, Mr. Speaker. Despite the fact that the Prime Minister's office has in hand a study that says Canadians are being forced to take a second job to make ends meet, they're delaying their retirement plans and postponing vacations, the Prime Minister is currently not doing a thing about it. After 2 years of pandemic, Canadians deserve better. When will the Prime Minister come down to earth and give families a break on gas tax? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. If the Conservative Party seriously wanted to make life more affordable for Canadian families, they wouldn't delay passage of the Budget Implementation Act from day one. To make life more affordable, the budget provides a 2-year ban on foreign investment in property. We're doubling the tax credit for access to housing and other assistance Canadians need, including $2 billion to the provinces and territories to reduce wait lists for surgeries. We are there to help Canadians. The Conservatives are playing political games. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Bloc Québécois yesterday tabled a motion to change the standing orders of the House and replace the daily prayer in support of the British monarchy with a private moment of reflection that everyone can use as they choose. As everyone says that that's an important step. There are a lot of frivolous arguments against it, but I think everyone here will have to stand up today and vote in the full view of Quebecers and Canadians. The Christian and British monarchy, the prayer in favor of the British monarchy, there's a choice between that and separation of church and state. How is the Prime Minister going to vote? The Honourable Prime Minister. As the member for Papineau, I'm very proud to be a Quebecer, but I can tell the leader of the Bloc that these days, Quebecers are more concerned about the cost of property, the cost of gas, and the cost of groceries, about climate change, and the war, the illegal war by Putin in Ukraine. There are all kinds of other concerns that we are dealing with here on this side of the House, and we will remain focused on Quebecers and Canadians and their real needs, their daily needs. That's our priority, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, you can be attached to the monarchy and to the prayer. That's legit, but we're talking about this is not a referendum on religion. These parties say one thing in Quebec and a different thing in the rest of Canada, but today that will no longer be possible. You're going to have to stand up and take a stand on this rule, this standing order. Prime Minister, are you in favor of or against the maintaining of this religious symbol and this monarchic symbol in Canada and Quebec? It's a simple question, the Right Honourable Prime Minister. We see how desperate the Bloc is to find a wedge issue and create squabbles all across the board. Mr. Speaker, we already have a separation between church and state in Canada. We have respect for all the different religions, and we will continue to make decisions based on the values and interests of all Canadians here in the House and elsewhere in political assemblies all across the country. We will always respect the choices of others, and we will not look to pick fights where there simply is no need.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are paying $2 or more per liter at the tanks. People are hurting. Families are hurting. At the same time, big oil and gas companies are posting huge profits, in some cases record profits. We also know that the government has seen an increase in revenues. So will the Prime Minister take the side of people and tax the excess profits of these companies and reinvest that into the pockets of Canadians by increasing the child benefit and the GST credit by $500 each?
Hear, hear, hear.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, a number of years ago, we attached the Canada Child Benefit to the rising cost of living. So, indeed, the cost of living increases go with the Canada Child Benefit. On the issue of asking those who've succeeded most to pay more, we have done that. We raised taxes on the wealthiest 1% and lowered them on the middle class as our very first action. And unfortunately, the NDP in those days voted against that measure. Furthermore, in our latest budget, we're moving forward and asking those largest companies and banks to pay a little more in helping Canadians, and that's exactly what we're doing.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Canadians are struggling. They're paying around $2 a litre for gas, and meanwhile, Imperial Oil is making its biggest profits in 30 years. Big companies are winning and Canadians are paying the price. Will the Prime Minister tax the excessive profits of big companies and put that money back in the pockets of ordinary Canadians? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. To make an economy inclusive and equitable, that has always been one of our top priorities. That's why we increased taxes on the 1% of the wealthiest to lower taxes for the middle class. We increased the child benefit and stopped sending checks to millionaires in order to send more money to families in need. And that's just some of what we've done. And Budget 2022 provides a temporary dividend for the economic recovery and provides a higher tax rate for the big banks. We're continuing to make the tax system more equitable for all.
Yesterday, in a strong and clear decision, Alberta's highest court ruled that the job-killing bill C-69 is an ugly power grab. In her ruling, Alberta's justice states, history teaches the government by central command rarely works. In Canada, by deliberate choice, is a federation, not a unitary state. And the Prime Minister was very quick yesterday to say that his government would appeal this decision. His tactics are well entrenched, my way or the highway. With all the bright lights around this Prime Minister, how did they not see this overreach would not withstand a constitutional challenge?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
A few years ago on the carbon pricing issue that ended up in our favor at the Supreme Court. The Impact Assessment Act delivered on an important promise we made to Canadians to reform a broken system. While the previous Conservative government passed a bill that gutted environmental protections, we took a different approach. We spent years working with companies, with communities, with Indigenous peoples and more, and that input made Canada's rules stronger. These better rules for major projects restore public trust in the process and protect the environment, advance reconciliation, and ensure that good projects can move forward.
The Honourable Member for Lakeland.
But the truth is, zero pipelines have been proposed or built under these Liberals, and they've killed billions in projects and hundreds of thousands of jobs. The PM ignored experts, workers, Indigenous leaders, investors in every province and territory on Bill C-69. The court said it's a, quote, profound invasion, a chokehold on provinces, a wrecking ball that smacks of paternalism and overrides Indigenous agreements. It's uncertain, unpredictable, unquantifiable, and unreliable, just like Conservatives warned. So, instead of wasting more time and tax dollars to appeal, will they just repeal Bill C-69?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Failed approach on major projects, nothing was getting done in Canada because communities, Indigenous peoples, and others kept taking every project to court because they didn't have a proper environmental assessment process. They didn't have a proper evaluation process for major projects. We changed that by working with communities, by working with companies to give that clarity that understood that it is essential to both protect the environment and build a stronger future. That's the only way to get things built. Unfortunately, Conservatives remain stuck in a world where they think you can ignore environmental responsibilities.
The Honourable Member for Perth Wellington.
Mr. Speaker, will the government commit to releasing their policy directive to the CRTC before voting on C-11?
Great question. Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know how important it is to ensure that Canadian producers, Canadian creators of content resonate not just across the country, but around the world. We've always had measures in Canada that promote Canadian music on Canadian TV and Canadian radio, Canadian content. That is something that we've long had to protect Canadian content creators. Unfortunately, once again, Conservative politicians stand against the arts community, stands against creators. We believe in making sure that Canadians can succeed around the world, and in a digital world, that's what we're doing.
The Honourable Member for Perth Wellington.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister is so proud of his approach, why does he not simply release the policy directive that he will be sending to the CRTC to implement this law? This just trust us approach does not inspire confidence with the Canadian people. The government is asking an entity that has neither the capacity nor the competency to regulate vast swaths of the internet, but the government will not disclose how they will instruct them to do so. Canadians are rightly concerned about how this will impact what they see and hear online. Why is the government asking Parliament to give the CRTC more power over Canadians without telling Canadians what the CRTC will be doing with that power?
Great question. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
In this country, country, the CRTC has always ensured that we promote Canadian creators, Canadian content. That's what they've done on the radio waves for decades, ensuring that we have Canadian music played on radio stations. That's what they've done with TV, ensuring that Canadian content gets put on Canadian TV, not just as a way of telling our stories, but also as a way of encouraging creators and producers in Canada. In a digital world, we need to ensure the same way Canadian producers of content are protected and upheld, and that's exactly what C11 does.
That's right.
Honourable member for Lethbridge.
Well, the Prime Minister continues to mislead Canadians. He tells them that Bill C11 will, quote, level the playing field. What he means by this is actually that digital-first creators, those who produce on YouTube or TikTok or Twitch, well, they're too successful. So they actually need to be held back through more regulation and by putting fees on top of them. Digital-first creators will be forced to subsidize commercial producers or broadcasters. Let that sink in for one moment here. This government's definition of leveling the playing field looks like punishing those who are successful so they can be equal with those who are not. Tell me, how is that fair?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We've heard for quite a while now the member from Lethbridge get up and completely mischaracterize what this bill is all about. The fact is, it is there to ensure that Canadian creators, that the Canadian artistic community, that Canadian producers of content are able to be found by Canadians and by people around the world on the internet. That is something that matters in order to continue to support our creative and artistic community in this country. Why are Conservatives continuing to stand against creators, artists, and the stories that Canadians want to tell to each other?
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Once again, the Prime Minister proves that he is either incompetent or absolutely committed to misleading Canadians every step of the way. He continues to do this over and over and over again. The fact of the matter is, Bill C11 would actually tip the scales in favor of traditional broadcasters by punishing digital-first creators, artists, those who use TikTok or YouTube or Switch or Spotify in order to get their message out. And somehow, magically, this is supposed to protect Canadian culture. Punish the little guys, reward the big guys. That is the plan here. So why does the Prime Minister insist on punishing digital-first creators?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, for decades, Canadian music has been not just succeeding in Canada, but around the world. And one of the reasons it has is because we had a system put in place that made sure that Canadian content got played on Canadian radio stations. And it allowed extraordinary artists not just to succeed in Canada, but around the world. The fact is, in a digital world, we need to ensure the same opportunity for Canadian creators of content to resonate across Canada, around the world, and that's exactly what C11 does. Unfortunately, yet again, we see the Conservative Party standing against artists and creators of content in this country. Why are they so scared of Canada's artists? I think we all know, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Allard. 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 C'est mieux ici.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said that he did want to defend all religions, but every day it's the Christian God, the Western God, that MPs are asked to pray to. There must be a few people here that bugs. Why not solve it once and for all? Let's vote and change the standing order, and all religions can be equal. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we can see all the great things the federal government must be doing for Quebecers to push the bloc to tackle such an innocuous issue as the morning prayer. We will continue to focus on what Quebecers and Canadians truly need. We have paid $8 out of $10 of all the assistance that Quebec has needed in the pandemic. It's come straight from the federal government. We will continue to help Quebecers meet their priorities while the Bloc can just try to pick fights left, right, and centre. The honourable member for Beloeil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, I'm so annoyed by having to pick these fights too that I'm on the edge of tears. I'm trying to get the Prime Minister to reflect a little bit on this issue. If secularism, if the separation between church and state is so unimportant, why would the federal government deploy federal resources to fight legislation in Quebec on this issue? Why not just let Quebec do as it sees fit and allow MPs here to choose their own religion? The Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I think we're finally getting to the big debate that Quebec would like to import here to the House of Commons on secularism. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, that we will always stand up for the rights of all Canadians, of all religions, because that is what makes our country so strong. Our diversity will always be a source of resilience for our communities, for our parliament, for our country, and we will continue to be there to defend fundamental rights and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms for all Canadians.
Honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
Anything and anyone, even vulnerable Afghans. The Toronto Sun reported 50 Afghans who worked at Canada's embassy in Kabul were taxed 50% on their pensions and severance pay, and the government wanted more. None of this money was earned in Canada. These were Afghan citizens, and they already paid income tax in Afghanistan. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing and return the money that they took from those vulnerable Afghans?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
For 20 years now, Canada has been there with Afghanistan, for Afghanistan, to support with our Canadian Armed Forces, with our humanitarian aid, with the work that Canadians continue to do to resettle Afghan refugees. We will continue to be there to support vulnerable Afghans, to support the families of people who've supported Canada over the many years. We will continue to do what is right by them all.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
Wonderfully failed. As the Taliban hunted for heads at doors, this Prime Minister kept his ministers busy hunting for votes at doors. After 9 months, only 31% of promised Afghan refugees have arrived in Canada. At the Afghan Committee, the Defense Department stated that 3,800 Afghan files were referred to IRCC, but only 900 have arrived here. Where are the other 2,900 applications? Did this government lose them in the Liberal-made immigration backlog, or are they not as important as other refugees when it comes to photo ops?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We remain firm in our commitment to resettle 40,000 Afghan refugees to Canada, and we're working tirelessly to bring them home to Canada as quickly and safely as possible. In the last month alone, more than 2,400 Afghan refugees have arrived in Canada, with hundreds more arriving every week. We've now welcomed over 12,000 Afghan refugees to Canada, and I was very pleased to meet with representatives of the Afghan community last Friday in Hamilton. We're going to continue to support families seeking a better life by remaining the open and welcoming country that Canadians expect us to be, Mr. Speaker. It's something we will always stand for. We believe in a stronger immigration for all Canadians.
Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the government's lawyers are stuck in Afghanistan, 28 of them. They worked for the Canadian Embassy, and they're being hunted by the Taliban because they worked for Canada. The Foreign Affairs Department passed along their names to the Immigration Department so they could escape to freedom and to Canada, but the Immigration Department has yet to process their application. This has been going on for 8 months, plenty of time to fix this problem. When will this problem be fixed?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
2021, we opened a pathway to permanent residence for extended family members of previously resettled Afghan interpreters. We know that many of their families may face danger because of the work of their loved ones. That's why we are sparing no effort in our work to reunite families.
Charles Saint-Charles.
The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg. Mr. Speaker, Canada had promised to resettle 40,000 Afghans, and give priority to Afghan interpreters who risk their lives to help our Canadian soldiers. But the repatriation of interpreters is blocked by the minister's insane demands to provide travel documents that aren't available without going through the Taliban. So we want to know, 1, the total number of interpreters who worked for Canada, including their family members, and 2, how many of them have arrived in Canada. The Right Honourable Prime Minister, we intend to keep our promise to resettle 40,000 Afghans, and we've been working tirelessly to bring them to Canada as quickly as possible and safely. In the past month alone, over 2,500 Afghan refugees have arrived in Canada, and hundreds of others are arriving every week. We have brought in over 12,000 Afghan refugees to Canada, and we will continue working on bringing in even more.
South. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our healthcare system is on the brink. We see long wait lists for emergency rooms and for surgical procedures. These wait lists are out of control. Our healthcare workers are exhausted, overworked, and under-resourced. All the while our healthcare system is struggling, the Prime Minister won't even meet with the premiers to discuss how we protect our public healthcare system. We need an injection of long-term, stable funding to defend our public healthcare system. Why won't the Prime Minister meet with the premiers to discuss how we save our healthcare system?
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, throughout the pandemic, and we've invested and worked with provinces and territories to keep Canadians safe from COVID-19, committing over $69 billion in new spending on healthcare-related measures. We've procured enough vaccines for everyone. We've delivered billions of items of PPE. We've sent out rapid tests across the country. We announced a one-time top-up of $2 billion to help clear surgery and diagnostic backlogs created and made worse by the pandemic, and we will continue to work with provinces and territories to strengthen our healthcare system for all Canadians, both for today and tomorrow.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Thank him first. The Rogers and Shaw merger will only result in massive layoffs for workers and increased prices for Canadians, when Canadians already pay some of the highest prices for cellular and internet services in the world. Now, the Competition Bureau opposes this merger because they know it's going to be bad for Canadians. Why doesn't the Prime Minister oppose this merger as well?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know that Canadians have long faced some of the highest bills for cell phones and wireless in the world. That's why we made a commitment a number of years ago to reduce the cost of cell phone bills in this country by 25%. And, Mr. Speaker, we did exactly that. Canadians continue to save money because we increase competition. We continue to ensure that Canadians are given proper services and reliable internet and cell phone services. And we will continue to make 10 times the amount of investments in a few years that the Conservatives made over 10 years.
Order. The Honourable Member for Etobicoke Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, residents in my riding of Etobicoke Lakeshore continue to watch in horror as Russia pursues its war of aggression against Ukraine. The courage shown by the people of Ukraine is inspiring. Canadians expect our government to do everything they can to support their fight for freedom and democracy. Can the Prime Minister update this House on his recent visit to Kiev with the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, including raising our flag above the Canadian Embassy?
Hear, hear. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for Etobicoke Lakeshore for his question and for his solidarity with the people of Ukraine. I recently traveled to Kyiv with the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs to announce the reopening of our embassy. I met with President Zelensky to discuss how we can help them defend their democracy and bore witness to the atrocities committed by Russian forces. I think all Canadians are extremely proud to see the maple leaf flying once again over the streets of Kiev.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
The cost of living crisis under this Liberal government is getting more and more dire. Gas prices across the country have skyrocketed, and we know it will only worsen over the coming weeks. In places like Vancouver, the average price of gas is $2.23 a litre. Canadians simply can't afford for it to keep rising. When will this government finally take this crisis seriously and provide Canadians with some much-needed relief?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Inflation crisis, first caused by this pandemic and second by Vladimir Putin's illegal war in Ukraine, is putting far too much pressure on families, including with the rise in gas prices. Canadians deserve more support. Instead, the Conservative Party has opposed policies that put money directly back into Canadians' pockets. They voted against cutting taxes for the middle class. They voted against cutting childcare fees in half this year, and they voted against more support for families, for seniors, and for students. Also, by opposing our price on pollution, they oppose giving more money to 8 out of 10 Canadian families in places where we brought in the price on pollution.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Mindabor.
The Prime Minister can learn that we can have both.
That's right.
If we didn't have the unconstitutional Bill C-69 limiting our Canadian oil and gas exports, then Canadians would actually be able to afford to fill up their tanks so they could go to work and take their kids to school. When will the Prime Minister take responsibility for his role in this cost of living crisis and finally stop making life harder for the average Canadian?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
For 10 years, Stephen Harper tried to create projects in this country to solve problems by ramming through with gutting environmental protections, and big surprise, nothing got done because Canadians know that the environment and the economy need to go together. So we brought forward C-69, which actually protects the environment and gives clarity to companies, and we've been able to move forward on large projects since. Canadians know the environment, the economy goes together. Why don't the Conservative politicians?
The Honourable Member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Bill Seabrook has owned Belmont Small Engine Repair for 30 years. He serves farmers, seniors, and everyday Canadians. The cost of fuel is crippling his company, and like all small businesses, his increased costs will be downloaded to the already struggling customer. People are having to choose between buying food, gas, or rent. Now, I know the Prime Minister has never been in a situation of such hardship, nor does he know the cost of these necessities. So my question is, how would he advise my constituents? Should they choose to buy gas, or rent, or food?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Our government has always had the backs of small businesses. By lowering small business taxes to 9%, we've moved forward with Budget 22 on allowing businesses and workers to succeed by reducing costs, by supporting Made in Canada innovation, by investing in a sustainable future. We're supporting entrepreneurs and businesses as they start up and scale up across Canada and around the world. Through this pandemic, Mr. Speaker, we had the backs of small businesses with the CEBA, with the wage subsidy, things that the Conservatives regularly railed against. We will continue to support small businesses during this difficult time.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, for Canadians that want it, property should be accessible. There's been a 21% increase in house prices in the Quebec City area. Even with a good job, Mr. Speaker, buying is simply not possible. Young families are having to give up their dream of owning a home altogether. The Liberals are unfortunately insensitive to this situation. Mr. Speaker, will this government be remembered as the government of broken dreams? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Housing is of a particular concern for the Canadian middle class that seek to purchase their first property. So, Budget 2022 provides investments to double the construction of houses over the next decade to help Canadians to buy their first property, to reduce disloyal housing practices that are increasing costs, and to increase affordable housing. We, on this side, are acting, and we will continue to act to help Canadians so that they can buy their first property. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, Roxham Road has been here for a long time. The Premier has asked this Prime Minister to close this road. Quebec will receive 36,000 immigrants through Roxham Road this year. And Quebec has to pay 92% of irregular immigrants arrive in Quebec. We do not have the capacity to offer services and housing to 36,000 new people every year. The Prime Minister could unilaterally close Roxham Road. Will he suspend the agreement on safe third countries? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We have spoken with relevant interveners when it comes to Roxham Road, and the government is working with our American counterparts with regards to our common border. This includes the third safe party country agreement. We would like to modernise the agreement, and we will continue to make sure that our asylum programme is strong and is filled with compassion, whilst protecting both Canadians and those who seek our help. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister could unilaterally suspend the agreement. He does not need anyone else's permission. So he should do his job. There's another job, paying the bill. Asylum seekers are under federal jurisdiction, but Quebec has had to invest $50 million in housing for irregular migrants. $72 million footed by Quebecers. Will the Prime Minister suspend the agreement, close Roxham Road, and compensate Quebec for once a federal jurisdiction? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. On this side of the House, we believe in the strength of our asylum system and our immigration system also. We work in close collaboration with various stakeholders. With regards to our border, and our government is working with its American counterparts when it comes to our common border. We will always respect our commitments, both nationally and internationally, with regards to asylum seekers.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
This government has never met a single emission reduction target. And the Commissioner of the Environment has now told them how they failed to meet another target. This is with respect to a just transition for coal workers. Despite repeated promises that they would be there for coal workers as they shifted away from coal, they were not. Coal workers were left out in the cold. And now they talk about other transitions. What are energy workers across the country supposed to think? Will the Prime Minister actually be there for them, or will he leave them out in the cold just like he did with coal workers?
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Our government's plan for the Futures Fund is clear. Deliver comprehensive action, including through legislation. We're speaking with workers, unions, Indigenous groups, stakeholders, and the provinces and territories on the best path forward. We're delivering strategic investments in skills and training, regional strategies, and projects across Canada that create sustainable jobs. Achieving the economy of the future requires coordinated planning to make sure Canadians have sustainable jobs that will carry them from tomorrow into a sustainable future.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Mr. Speaker, coal workers lost their jobs years ago, and they got nothing. And that answer gives them nothing. They don't have a trust fund. They do not have an expensive Mercedes. They are on EI or nothing because the government did nothing. And to listen to the Prime Minister talk about some future fund while coal workers are sitting there with nothing is an embarrassment. Will the Prime Minister apologize for the deplorable treatment of coal workers?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Conservative governments at the federal and provincial level have long denied that climate change is a reality, have long resisted taking action to support families and workers in the transition towards cleaner economies and a lowered reliance on fossil fuels. While on this side of the aisle, Mr. Speaker, we've recognized where the future is going, and we've been there to support and transform communities and jobs for everyone. The Conservatives are continuing to ignore the science and the reality of climate change and not taking the action that is necessary to support people and their careers and their communities into the future.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, the government has committed that by 2035 all new vehicles sold in Canada will be zero-emission vehicles. The RBC estimates that from here on in, an investment of $25 billion per year will be required to build a network of charging stations. Department officials told a committee last week that the cost calculations for building this network hadn't even yet been done. Whoops. Is the government choosing to be completely ignorant, or is it just doing so because it simply does not care about additional costs to Canadians? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we clearly heard Canadians from coast to coast to coast asking to have better access to electric vehicles and zero-emission vehicles, and that is the reason for which our government has put forward an ambitious and bold plan to ensure that Canadians have access to electric vehicles with reduction programs, with investments in charging stations, allowing us to be at 20% of electrification by 2026, 30%, or rather 50% by 2030, and 100% by 2035. We will be here, Mr. Speaker, and we trust in the future we are building together. The Honourable Member for Laval-Lazille. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers want to know what this government is doing for them. Again, this week, we see that our Bloc Québécois colleagues are trying to stir up trouble where there is none by claiming to be defending Quebec's interests. On our side, Mr. Speaker, we are 35 Quebec Liberals who are working tirelessly tooth and nail to bring results for the province of Quebec and for Quebecers. Can the Prime Minister update this House on the ways in which this government supports Quebecers and Quebec? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to thank the member for Laval-Lazille for his question and for his diligent work. Indeed, our government is always here for Quebecers. Recently, in that province, we announced more than $13.3 million so that the PHI Foundation Montreal can expand and continue to offer contemporary art, $9.4 million for the construction of an innovation and advanced training centre in Rivière-du-Loup, $9.1 million to build a new arena in Magog, $2.25 million to build the INAFIB Research Centre in Trois-Rivières, etc., etc. We have always been there for the interests of Quebecers, and we will continue to be here for the interests of Quebecers.
The Honourable Member for Fundy Royal. Mr. Speaker, exactly 14 months ago, Conservatives stood in this House and warned the government not to ignore Canadians with disabilities and mental health advocates and their very real concerns with the Liberals' medically assisted dying bill. Look where we are now. We've all read the horror stories over the last few months of medically assisted death being administered to people not because they were near death, but because they were vulnerable. Does the Prime Minister see any issues with how medically assisted death is now being misused in Canada?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, respecting the rights and the choice of all Canadians has always been a priority for this government, and we will continue to stand up for Canadians' rights to make choices. At the same time, we need to make sure we're investing sufficiently and partnering with provinces and territories to ensure quality health care for seniors, including with national standards, quality palliative care, things that we're ready to work with the provinces on and invest in. We respect provincial areas of jurisdiction, but we will also always ensure that we're standing up for the fundamental rights of all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the lives of vulnerable Canadians, yet the Liberals took months to reconstitute the committee to review this legislation after the Prime Minister put a stop to their work when he called his election. Now we're learning of Canadians who see medically assisted death as an alternative to a lack of health care or a lack of safe housing. When it comes to this tragic misuse of medically assisted death, why does the Prime Minister continue to ignore the pleas of vulnerable Canadians?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the question of medical assistance in dying has always been a deeply personal one, a deeply important one for all Canadians, and getting the balance right between respecting people's fundamental freedoms to make their own choices about their life and the protection for the most vulnerables has always been the priority of this government. That's why we took a responsible, step-by-step approach on this, continue to be informed by data. Obviously, we've heard extremely concerning stories going on this, and that's why we need to be there to continue to protect the vulnerable, to ensure top-quality health care right across the country, including palliative care and senior support.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, there have been several well-documented cases of abuse and non-compliance under the Liberals' MAID regime. This has drawn rebuke from disabilities rights organizations, a UN Special Rapporteur, and now the RCMP have launched a criminal investigation into the questionable MAID death of a BC woman who suffered from depression. And until now, not a word of concern from the Prime Minister. So will the Prime Minister admit that Canadians that are vulnerable are falling through the cracks and that there are serious abuses under the Maid regime?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Beginning of this debate, this government has moved forward with a careful mindset of both upholding Canadians' fundamental rights and protecting the most vulnerable. That's what the Supreme Court decision demanded that we do as a government, and that's what we've moved forward with in a responsible way, incrementally, with massive consultations, with collection of data. We will continue to follow the evidence. We will continue to base ourselves in science. While Conservatives continue to be wrapped up in ideology, we will respect Canadians' choices and protect the most vulnerable.
L'Honorable Deputy de Saint-Laurent.
Mr. Speaker, we know that everyone in Canada deserves access to safe and affordable sexual and reproductive health care. It is vital to abortion rights and is necessary for equitable and appropriate access to a full range of reproductive and sexual health services for vulnerable Canadians, women and girls, Indigenous peoples, 2S LGBTQ2+ community, and youth. Can the Prime Minister tell this House how the government intends to support Canadians in need of such services?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I'd like to first thank the member for Saint-Laurent for her important question and her leadership on standing up for women's rights. Finally, we firmly believe that all people in Canada, no matter their circumstances, should have access to a full suite of sexual and reproductive health care information and services that are free, that are safe and free of stigma. It's why we just announced $4 million worth of funding to projects under the Sexual and Reproductive Health Fund to develop resources and tools to support the 2S LGBTQI+ communities. It'll help 3 national projects led by the Community-Based Research Centre, EGAL Canada, and Sherborne Health. We will continue to improve reproductive health services for people who experience the greatest barrier.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Last week, another report was released about the over-incarceration rate of Indigenous women, who currently make up over half the population, the female population in Canada's federal prisons. The Liberal government is aware of this crisis and has chosen not to address it in spite of the calls for justice in the final report of the missing, murdered, and Indigenous women and girls. It's time to stop making excuses. When will this Prime Minister implement the calls for justice and put an end to this systemic racism?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I thank the member opposite for his question and his passion on this file. It is something that we absolutely share. That is why, since 2015, we've moved forward on the calls to justice, the calls to action. We've moved forward on the path of reconciliation. We recognize there is so much work to continue to be done, but this government is continuing to move forward in partnership with Indigenous peoples to change the systemic discrimination and racism that continues to exist in all levels and institutions across Canada. We continue to stand strong and move forward with Indigenous peoples.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question to the Prime Minister is on the subject of single-use plastics. But first, I really want to thank the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, and Foreign Affairs Minister for their recent trip to Ukraine. Turning to single-use plastics, less thanks and more demands that we do something about the mounting amount of plastics in our environment, the microplastics that permeate almost all the water on Earth, and the plastics that are found in the stomachs of animals that wash up dead. The Prime Minister promised to eliminate single-use plastics by 2030. We don't have a plan. The regulations that in draft form are completely inadequate. When will we see a plan to eliminate single-use plastics by 2030?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, in 2017, when we hosted the G7 in Charlevoix, we moved forward with a historic oceans protection charter that moves forward on eliminating single-use plastics, on working with partners around the world to reduce the impact of plastics in the oceans and in our biosphere. We will continue to work with science, with experts, with corporations, and with Canadians to make sure that we are eliminating toxic single-use plastics, continuing to protect our environment for future generations. And I thank the leader of the Green Party for all her devotion to this and many other important issues.
And that's all the time for question period today. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I requested the ordinary hour of daily adjournment for the next sitting be 12 midnight pursuant to order made Monday, May 2nd.
That's excellent.
2022.
It's a great idea.
Pursuant to order made on Monday, May 2nd, 2022, the Minister's request to extend the said sitting is deemed adopted. Now we have a number of l'honorable député de Belleuil-Chambly.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, there have been consultations between the parties, and I think that you will see unanimous consent for the following motion in order to put in place a permanent solution to the irregular passage of migrants at Roxham Road, that this House ask the government to suspend the Canada-U.S. Safe Third Country Agreement, and that it calls for the passage of migrants through regular channels throughout Canada, and consequently the closure of Roxham Road. I already hear nays.
Monsieur,
the Honourable Member for Rosemont Petite Patrie. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After consultations amongst the parties, I believe that you will find unanimous consent for the following motion: that the House condemn the murder of Palestinian journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, ask for an independent investigation into her death in order to ensure that those responsible answer for their crimes, and stop and recognize that targeting journalists is a war crime. All those opposed to the motion will say nay. Okay, the House has heard.
I've heard a no. You know what? I want to say something here, too, is that we've been using these kinds of motions without consultation with the other parties. So all I would ask for the parties to consult with one another to make sure that we know what's coming up so that we can pass things amicably here in the House of Commons. Merci beaucoup. It being 3:19, pursuant to order made on Thursday, November 25th, 2021, the House will now proceed to the taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion of Mr. Champoux related to business of supply. Convoquez les députés.
Call in the members. That's what a whip walk should sound like, folks.
Love it, Speaker. Love it.
All right, I want to remind everybody to keep the tone down a little bit while we make the call. The question is the following one. La question est la suivante. Mr.
Champoux, seconded by Mrs. Gill, moved that given that the House respects the beliefs and non-beliefs of all parliamentarians and of the general public, may I dispense?
No, j'attendais no.
No, I hear some nays. And it is committed to the principle of separation of religion and the state, the diversity of views and freedom of conscience, while upholding the secularism and religious neutrality of the state, and out of a desire for inclusiveness,